Thank you so much for joining me today on the Freedom Driven Landscaper podcast brought to you by the Lucrative Landscaping book. I'm really happy to have you here today, Diana. I know that it's the busy season and there's lots going on, but thanks for being here. And would you please introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about how you got into landscaping and all this kind of stuff, how it's been for you?
Sure. So I'm Deanna Grundeen. I am the owner of Trio Landscaping. My company is 13 years old, and I've been in the industry for over 25 years now. Having started off fresh and young, fresh out of college, and right into an internship and working for a few other companies was really awesome and a great way to understand more of how the industry works because each of those companies had a little different aspect on how they went about their own landscape processes. And they were also different size companies as well. So I started out with a
Yeah.
bigger company, went to a medium, and now I myself am a small company. So it was really fun. So that's kind of been my journey, how I got into all of this. I fell into it. I took a really awesome class in high school to avoid biology that ended up bringing me out into the greenhouse and into a horticulture program. And one of the chapters of that was to do landscape design. And it was easy, like too easy. Like, I don't get why everybody else is having such a hard time. This is what I need to draw, and I need to put in a front entryway with some privacy, with some year round color. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
Easy for you,
And,
not easy for everybody.
the things you learn later that it's not easy for everybody else, but I just thought it was. So it's very easy for me. And I enjoyed it and I saw that it was easy to a point at that aspect. But even in retrospect, how easy it was and the progress that I was making, I can't even appreciate until I'm way out of it. 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 plus years later, it's like, okay, I get that. That was my path and became more of my vocation then as well. So I changed what I thought I was going to grow up and be at
Right.
that time because it was something that I just fell in love with.
Did you consider, I mean, I'm sure you're all of these things, but are you an artist or are you a designer? Are you a green thumb? Are you a business owner? Like, if you think about your identity, like, it's all of them, obviously, but
Yes.
like, do you have or do any of those speak to you more than the others?
So I thought I was going to grow up and be in the theater and do set design, set construction. So I come at it from that aspect of putting things together, being visual and creating a scene, right? That's what a lot of our outdoor living spaces are, is creating that environment to bring you somewhere. So I guess I am more that artistic creative, and I just changed my medium. No longer am I doing it in a dark, no sunshine space called a theater, but now I'm doing it outdoors and in each individual person's yard. I
Oh,
love
interesting.
plants.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody describe it that way. That's really cool. Yeah, so you're a green thumb that is a set designer.
Yeah.
Ah, neat. That's really cool. And so how has how do you find the business side on top of that? Do you wanna grow your company to be an enterprise, or are you preferring to kind of be yourself with a core team, or how do you look at that?
So when I started my business 13 years ago, it was, well, only I can do what I do.
Yeah.
And really, I started wearing all the hats. I started being everything within my business as far as learning how to run a business, being the marketing, doing the books, doing all of the sales, doing all of the data entry, doing all of the design work, doing all of the computer portion of the design work, doing all the estimates. If it was happening outside of doing the physical installations, it was really smart and already understood my limitations there and had a really good subcontractor to pair up with. So I would do all of that beginning process of having the business for somebody to call, setting up all the phone numbers, all of that junk, building my own website. I did all of that at the beginning. And then I would then have a crew put it in that I would then manage. And they already knew me. So they already knew my level of management, which some days was very micromanaging it. down to the, no, you can't put that plant in. You couldn't swap that out. No, that plant doesn't look right. We need to get a better plant that's in there, blah, blah, blah. To, okay, you know how to put in the papers. I trust that you already know that process. We work together long enough that I don't have to micromanage and tell you how to grade it and how to prep it and do all of that. So a lot of great ways that I could hand off a portion. I worked with a really good business coach then shortly after I got my business started because I realized that there was a lot that I didn't know. And then I realized that there was even more I didn't know once I started working with a business coach
Yeah.
and helped set a lot of processes in place. And over time, I've added staff to my company so I don't have to do it all. And we've changed out that staff. We've kept growing. So what I said I wasn't going to do, I've done a lot of those things already. I wasn't going to necessarily have somebody else do my design work in the computer. And I realized that I love to draw with a pencil and a paper.
Mhm.
And I can make it happen faster if I let my brain just flow through that. But to try to make it look and get all the fine details of making it show up in a really awesome computer program I was using at the time was limiting. I wanted to change it. It had a whole different way of interacting with it. So I hired somebody else that got the program right away, even though they had never been in it. I had a very interesting interview process to go along with that, but found somebody that really is having a lot of fun and can keep making the program work for us. So our design work and what we're sharing with the clients has improved because I let go of that part of the process. I'm still doing all the design work, just somebody else is realizing it in the computer for me now. I love having it.
That's
Yeah.
neat. Are they local or do they come in online?
So yes, we're local. How I run my business has changed greatly over the past. When did COVID start? Yeah, then. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, uh, and and at that time is when I switched some of my staff around as well. So yes, they're all local to me. I can get together with them. They have to be local to be able to go out to my projects and get base information and all of that. But we actually all work virtually from our own homes.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
So including me.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. No, that's nice. I've seen a lot of businesses doing really well that way. But I also have, I was sort of self serving a little bit with that question because I have a client who he loved the design, but he is working to delegate more. And so we were discussing that a lot, whether it's possible to hire somebody. He lives in a pretty small beach community, so it's tough to find people locally. So we're debating whether it makes sense to try and find somebody online who maybe has some sort of awareness of the plants locally at least that could then do it. But then like you said, then they wouldn't be able to do the measurements. So how does that work? They'll do the measurements for you, and then you'll do up the drawing on paper, and then they'll translate that back into the computer. Is that it, or?
Yeah, I have lots of base maps. I have lots of pieces of paper that I get with all the information, a ton of photography that goes along with it, elevations, all of that stuff, and their notes. Like, you're going to want to maybe go see this part of the site when you get a chance, or be wary of the neighbor over here. So having somebody physically that is my person, they're not just a contractor at that point, but they're my employees. So we have that repertoire that can go back and forth, especially when you get clients that love to lock their gates and want us to do work in the backyard. You know, hey, can you make sure I can get in there? I'm going to be heading out there soon, um, type of stuff. But yes, they go out, and the reason I have them go out instead of me is, well, I could take all the base information, and I started that way. At first, I'm going to get all the information and I'm going to hand it off to my computer person. I can write really neat when I want to, but I can also write really fast when I'm thinking fast and jumping around. And I just found that the data, the way I collect it and the way they need to sit down and work at it meant that we were missing data somewhere. And so for them to get to know the site and then be able to give me the data that I just say, I need this, here's a list. Or, hey, I'm seeing this, but I'm missing this other part. Did you get that? Oh, let me make sure it's in there for you, has worked out way better because now we actually have two sets of, I'm going to say eyes. It's their physical eyes. I'm doing things very virtually, but we have two different feels of what the property is. So as I'm designing and I'm saying, okay, I'm thinking that this retaining wall needs to be 4 feet tall. That's jiving with the elevations that I got, but is that also jiving with what you're feeling there on the site too? So it it definitely helps give me a checks and balances by having somebody else do that. All depends on your process. I've done it the other way too. Like I said, I just felt like some things were missing. Um, I'm the one that's speccing all of the plant material though. My design assistant is getting to know the plant material, but that wasn't her first passion. Computer and graphic arts and all that other fun stuff was. So she knows how to make it look really awesome. So what we're presenting connects with the client. And I'm the one putting all of the nice fluffy guts that are in there.
I like it. The visceral image.
It's just fun. And it's like all the stuff, the bones. It's actually more of that, the skeleton.
Yeah,
It's how it's coming together and the way it's gonna feel. So
right. Yeah. You mentioned you had an interesting interview process for it. Did you want to comment on that?
I really, instead of just seeing if they could do something later, I made them go get a copy, a test run. So you didn't have to buy anything. It didn't make anybody invest any money. But once they got so far and we felt like we were good people together, I said, now go get the test run of the program and design something for me and send it to me. I don't care if it's a part of your own yard, if it's a friend's or whatever, but show me that you can do it. And then I based my hire off of that. Somebody that can pick it up quick enough to show something and make it look like I can understand it, then we can only grow from there. So, yeah.
Cool. And then, so in your kind of application, I guess, for that job, it must have been fairly general if you're hiring somebody who didn't have experience in that. Was there, how did you describe that when you were looking for it? Or was it more specific and they just happened to apply anyways?
I opened it up, so I let them know that I was looking for a landscape design assistant. So you knew that this is the type of work because you have to want to be outside. You have to want to be able to go into people's yards and play with plants and think about those things. Because if you don't, it's not going to be fun for you. I wanted to make sure that I was finding the right person for the right type of job. But I found out very quickly through earlier types of interviews, if I was only looking for somebody that already had landscape design experience, that they didn't necessarily have the experience in the program that I wanted to run. And that was harder to make somebody change programs for the same reason I was hiring for it. It was hard to change the program. It's hard for me. Old dog, new tricks. I want to keep just I'm automatically going to click these buttons or think these things. And it was going to be a fight to try to do it a new or different way. So I wanted
Yeah.
to find somebody that was comfortable with the program, hence the test. But me also opening it up and finding out that maybe somebody that just wants to learn this program would be okay too if they have the desire. So I wanted them not to have plant knowledge, but be interested in plants, to be able to take and make something beautiful out of it. So can you manipulate the computer to do what I want efficiently? So that's how I went through that interview process. And I found a number of people. A lot of them were younger students and could have worked out really well. There was another really great runner up, and it was going to be fantastic, except that she wasn't going to be able to start until June or July. Yeah, it was more like June. And I was hiring back in January, February. Like, I want to get somebody on board and be ready for the season. So uh, it was just really fun, really eye opening to again see that somebody else, it was really easy for them, even though that part was hard for me.
Mm. Yeah.
So a lot of introspect because the design part's so easy for me. Why can't I do it in the computer? Guess I'm not that much of a computer person.
Or you have other priorities. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do.
You have a lot to
And
run.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got that. We now use Vectorworks and it is awesome. And I've had a lot of people tell me that if you've spoken Adobe and played in the Adobe platforms, that feeds into the Vectorworks platform very well. And a lot of people felt that. Once I started looking for people that knew Adobe, that's where I found my golden star. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I discovered a hiring strategy just recently in the marketing world, but it has a clear parallel here where the guy was saying he's basically runs an agency, and he was saying for his media buyers, for his people who runs Google AdWords and these kinds of things, you can hire AdWords experts. Or what he's found out is what he does is he looks I don't know how to word it. It's sort of a layer higher in terms of expertise. So rather than hiring the AdWords experts, what he looked for were statistics graduates and engineers. And
oh,
then because he found that if you understand the math and the behind it and the numbers, he can teach the ad platform no problem. And so he's wound up with way better candidates that don't have any experience, so they're more cost effective compared to hiring an expert in that field. And then a little bit of training, which is better than having them come in already trained because now they don't have all the bad habits.
yes.
And then so I mimicked that myself where you often I would hire people who have experience with web development and these kinds of things. This time instead I said the I used Upwork this time, and instead of saying web development, I said I targeted at people who were really good in customer service. And then I said that the ad was going to involve web development. So like I don't want to bring in somebody who hates that. But
Right.
I also said there's no experience required. It's just like I want somebody who's really good at dealing with people who is also interested in learning how to do some web dev stuff. And I'll show you how it all works. And we set up our stuff so it's pretty straightforward to do. They don't have to learn how to code or anything like that. And it's been amazing to hire that way because the person that I hired was much less expensive than the web people that I've hired before. But she's so much better to work with, and this job also requires. Actually, you've sort of met her. This is Georgie that I'm speaking about right now. Actually, that you're emailing with.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and so Georgie, it's kind of a multifaceted job that she does. She's sort of more of an assistant than having a specific role, but usually I would lean towards the web dev guys so that at least they would know how to do that. But then they're super annoying to work with. So this person has been really good it's been a really good strategy. I really recommend it. And I say that to people all the time who are looking for labor work and this kind of thing, right? I'm sure maybe you can speak to it too, but the idea of hiring for attitude and aptitude and then training skills as opposed to trying to find people who already know how to do this stuff. Have you yeah, actually, well, you sort of, I don't know if it's a sensitive topic, but you mentioned switching out your staff or around COVID. Maybe there's something that relates to that there, or anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely switching out for people that are ready to make those changes. As we were changing things, it's like, well, we're going to do things a little differently. Maybe that didn't work for all of my staff. So, all right, let's find somebody that it does work with. And it's some people leave with they burn their bridges as they head out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then other people are like, no, I'm gonna take this as a time of opportunity. The one gal who is super awesome, uh, it's all her boyfriend's fault, who is now her husband. That he had a super different type of job that had to do with computers. And she's like, well, actually, I think that his job is fun. So I keep doing his job on the side. And I think I'm just going to go work there now. Like, okay, well, I appreciate the honesty that you are changing and making what works for you. That wasn't a reflection necessarily on me and gave us an opportunity to get somebody else in the seat. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So, um, the podcast being called Freedom Driven Landscaper, the idea is to sort of uncover different things that different business owners have done to be able to grow their business, to have a nice lifestyle, but then not be so trapped in it that that's their entire lifestyle. And I'm a pretty obsessed entrepreneur myself, so I wouldn't say like I have a lifestyle outside of work, but it's pretty intermingled. So don't get me wrong there. But it sounds like you've been through quite a journey in that way with changing the company and also working for other companies. Like, what did you learn along the way that you thought would be better to run yourself, as opposed to just continuing to work for somebody else. 'Cause often that story has something to do with something that you thought you could do better. And then once you've worked through that vision to bring it to reality, how has that journey been for you in terms of building the business in such a way that it's a nice place to be and that it's a nice life to live? And I mean, I'm not going to pretend like anybody does it perfectly or has nailed it. Everybody, it's always a work in progress. But how has that been for you? How's that been?
Um, so little part of the backstory with that is that my husband of 24 years, he and I met in college for landscaping. And so it was always the assumed thing that he and I were then going to become a company on our own once we were ready for that. Did install, I do design. It's like a match made in heaven. He worked for a company that I had worked for. Again, everybody thought that. But especially at that time, I really appreciated having a boss that when things got to be not necessarily too much, but when I needed assistance, like, hey, how am I going to do this? Or how is this going to work? Or how do we work with this type of client or this type of property, whatever it might have been? I would go to a boss, right? They can help you out. You could also go to a fellow designer. They can help you out. That was great. My husband very rarely got to do my installations, but at the end of the day, we could chat and we would have a lot of things in common and could talk about everybody. Um, was really, really awesome. He then realized that his body wasn't going to keep up with him forever. And so he moved out of the installation part, went into truck driving. He now drives around a liquor truck all the time and works for me on the side. That works out better. I enjoyed, again, at that time, having that big company. Then I changed companies, went somewhere else, and enjoyed working with less red tape, right, less corporate structure, a little bit softer, and could feel a little bit more freedom of how I was working within the company. Like, hey, I really think that we should do this. So can I work with the subcontractor so I can get this type of job done? Because our own crews don't do that. Is that going to be okay? And fleshing that out a little bit more. And then the recession hit. And that changed the way that that little company was working themselves. There was an owner that wanted to build different parts of it and blah, blah, blah. And he wasn't focusing on my department. And I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that they were marketing. I didn't like how they were maybe talking about the company. And so we agreed that I was going to move on. Fantastic. I was put in a position that I had a lot of choice. I had a lot of empowerment. And I went out and I interviewed with a number of other companies in the area. I didn't feel like I had to have them, but hey, do I want to go join this company? That sounds pretty cool. I know that there's some good people over there. I was pretty well connected in the industry at that point. And compared to now, I was kind of connected. But as I kept interviewing, I'm like, I like how they do this over here, but I don't really care for how they do this part. So is that the environment that I want to put myself in?
Would
If
you
I
mind
could find
sharing?
that right away.
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind sharing, if it's not too personal, a little bit about what your department was and what you were liking and what you weren't liking? I'm really curious.
To be very honest, at this point, I don't think I even remember the specifics.
Hmm.
It was just as I went to go interview with them, they would start talking about how they run their day. And I was trying to see myself going through. I'm like, but why would I need to do that? Which is, by the way, a thing that I still question often. Like, why do I have to do it that way? Why don't you just do it this way? I didn't realize at that particular moment that that is totally an entrepreneurial ADHD focus type of thing, right? But but at the time, I'm like, "But why would you do it that way? It doesn't make sense." So I took those bits and pieces, and again, I can't remember some of the exact details. Maybe some of them was already that they didn't market very well. Maybe some of it was they were requiring me to be one of them actually was. They wanted me to be a part of the crew. in addition to doing the design and sales work. And I'm like, okay, that sounds really fun. I would love jumping in a bobcat and like running around and bossing people around. I can see that that would be a strong suit. But how is that going to fit in my day if I'm supposed to be on the job site for 8 hours and you want me to sell how much work? I should also note that, hi, I'm a female in this industry. I'm a mom. And at that particular time, I had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Those are really important times to be a mom and to be around. And I enjoy being a mom. I love what I do for work. But how was I going to work all day and then sell and design and still be able to have time for my kids? So that was another really big part. The company that I was with before, my kids would come into the office every now and then. I had daycare really close, and my mom would end up watching them. So we had a pretty good balance of I would work, but I still also had my kids in and out. And so for that one company, I'm like, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. I don't know how you can maintain that. Not to say that I already didn't work a ton outside of traditional hours, but I did it on my own fruition. So okay, I go through all of that, and it was actually a business group that I was with. And I said, hey, by the way, I'm no longer going to be with this company. I'm kind of in between right now. So any suggestions that you have, let me know. And in that group, everybody kind of unanimously told me that I should start my own business. They told me. It wasn't something that I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. They told me, well, Deanna, why don't you do that? Well, the whole why? Why are you going to do it that way? Why are you going to go work for somebody else when you have all the things that you need to be able to do it on your own? Because I kind of liked having somebody else in charge and be the person to go to. And that was really all it became. Well, you have a business group that you can have a lot of these resources. There was a bookkeeper in there that specialized or had a lot of experience with starting young companies. So he helped me get all my paperwork in a row, tell me the right books to read. You know how many starting a business for dummy books and trying to go through that at that point, 11 o'clock at night, while my husband's sleeping in bed, I have all the lights on and I'm reading books on how to start a company. In February, March. Minnesota landscape season starts somewhere around March, April. So it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this. And I committed to it. So I don't know how much of it was really my own idea, but it was my willingness to have other people tell me that I was ready. And I think I really needed that. I needed somebody else to have that confidence in me that I could do it all on my own. And so I started. And I did start with that lovely little pile of customers and even a few of those initial customers. So I'm going out on my own. How do you feel about that? And what do you think I should name my company? Because Deanna's Landscaping did not sound suave. Nobody could pronounce it right the first time. Let's be honest. My name is spelt in English and pronounced in German, and that just takes way too much explanation. And it's just really cheesy. And we no longer needed to start with an A for the phone book because Google existed, right? So there's a different shift in marketing there as well. So a lot of those things made sense, even though I didn't always say them out loud. Okay. Our company name, actually, my mom named it. She kind of doesn't know it, but it came up in the conversation one day as I was dropping my kids off at her house or picking them up. And I said, we are going to go do this. I must have been dropping them off. We are going to go do this. And she's like, who is this we? You're leaving me with the kids. Who is we? Like, well, it's me, myself, and I.
Okay.
And I do that. I talk about myself in the third person more often than I probably should. But we're going to go do this. She's like, oh, so the trio of you. Yes, trio. I love it. Super marketable. Then I start going down that rabbit hole, and I didn't take any marketing classes. I didn't know what I was doing, but super marketable and could assign all these different things. So that's how I became Trio Landscaping. I picked the 3 favorite things that I like to do and how I want to work with my clients. I provide them a consultation. Let's talk about your yard. Let's just talk about how you want to live in that space. There's a consultation. Yeah, I'm going to bill you for that. Then there's the design. Put it down on paper telling you everything, where it goes and how it all lays out. I'll charge you for that. Third bucket. You want to have it put in because you want to pick up your shovel and you just want to enjoy the space. I call those my lemonade clients. You just want to sit back with a cold glass of lemonade and just enjoy it, right? Okay. Well, I have project management. I was very careful to not call it installation because I wasn't installing anything. I manage my subcontractors, all my contracts, because I worked with a really good attorney to make sure that I had everything that I needed. We put it in there that, yes, we're working with subcontractors. That is who is putting in all of our work. We're in charge of them. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about any of the other things. We got all the stuff, but there I am. Consultation, design, and project management. Those are my trio of services that I provide to my clients for residential, landscape, outdoor living spaces. And that was now 13 years ago. My kids are much older. They've grown up participating, helping, sometimes begrudgingly, sometimes very willingly within the business. And that took another shift because everything was going good. We add a few people in and we definitely grew a whole lot from what my sales quota was at that point. My first year sales, no, I should say my third year sales actually beat everything that I had done while I was an employee. So already by year 3, I really felt like I was up and going. And then COVID hit. And that was a major shift for everybody. It was right there in the spring. Things were supposed to be starting. It was as our own association, the Minnesota Nursery and Landscape Association, was advocating for us that we were very much a essential employee. You can't just start letting all this stuff not be taken care of or not be happening. We're working outside, blah, blah, blah. But everybody made a big shift. Lots of things made a shift to going online and to working with Zoom. And the networking group that I was in, that's how they moved all their meetings. So I was playing with it in another aspect. Like, this is actually kind of working. Let's go ahead and try, instead of not meeting clients for a while or going out having lots of space, as I still drive all over the metro area, have to get from point A to point B and then see multiple people in a day, which as a mom, that part made me a little bit less comfortable. Oh, wait. And then my kids aren't in school and they're at home. So I kind of want to be there for them and make sure that they're getting their stuff done. So what's going to work for me? And moving things over to a Zoom consultation. I sit in this lovely little office now and don't drive all over town. I didn't need to see my chiropractor as much because I didn't need to try to release all the stress from driving around town. Light bulb moment, didn't realize that that's what all that stress was really from. I just thought I was a stressed person. I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. So that was really awesome. It took a bit for people to get used to using Zoom at that particular point, especially to then, hey, here, take your phone, walk around your yard, show me what's going on, then maybe jump over to your computer. So I teach people about transitions. And here, now I can show you a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a few people that are like, no, 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 no. You have to come out and see my yard. You just have to be here. You're not going to get it. And that's fine. If you don't think that I'm going to be the right fit for you, that's okay. There are plenty of other landscape people out there to help you. However, if you really like the rest of my process and you're just scared that I'm not going to get your yard, try me. Because what I found, and I didn't know this right away, it did take a bit to get going, but I have a sense of intuition. I can kind of tell where things aren't graded right. And I can actually see that in the camera and what you have going on, unless they are super crazy and zooming all over the place, or we have a bad connection. But um, we've had some really, really good success. So I do all my consultations over Zoom now, and I don't drive around. That meant in 2020 and 2021, I had record years for the amount of clients I saw because I didn't have to worry about the drive time between. I just had to give myself enough time to get up off this chair and off my butt. I wasn't as active. That was a little sad. That was very sad, because I stayed in my office so much. However, I'm also from Minneapolis. Anybody know what happened in Minneapolis during that time of 2020? George Floyd. George Floyd happened 6 blocks from my house. I did not enjoy all the helicopters hanging out over my house. That was not fun. Um, so I also took that as an opportunity at that particular point. Um, well, not even right then, but that definitely fed into it. And by the end of that winter, I had a wonderful epiphany moment that I did not need to sit in Minneapolis to do my job anymore. I love nature. I love being outside and I love doing things. So I went and did a really crazy thing. I went and bought a second business. I bought a resort. So welcome to Hackensack, Minnesota, where we have 9 lovely little cabins on a lakefront on a lake in up north Minnesota. And I am 3 hours away from the Twin Cities, where all my work is done as a landscaper. And I sit up here. So this is Hackensack, Minnesota, not Minneapolis. That is where my center, where my staff is at, where all my projects happen at. Last summer, I did go down and visit projects. And I was down in the cities about every 2 weeks or so. This year, my goal is to be down about once a month, walk through and to see things, because I hired a new project manager. Oh my gosh, that was the best decision ever. It took me a while to do that because I really love going out and being on the job. So that was like one of the hardest transitions for me. But I love it because he's really good at it. I don't have to worry now. And I get to be up here. And this morning, while I was on a different meeting, I was actually sitting out on my dock taking another business meeting with the beaver swimming underneath me, hanging out, Bill in his little house. And I have a whole nother space to be able to refill my soul and to feel a little bit more relaxed and to feel better about how I'm running my landscape business. Because my landscape business is still super important to me. And I love running it, but I also now have more mental breaks for myself. And there are still many days that I still find myself sitting in this chair in my office way too often. But now instead of having to get in my car and like go drive to a park, yes, I had a fantastically beautiful landscaped yard that I could go sit in. I had a pond out there and a nice picnic table and lots of different plants, and they're great until the airplane flies overhead. But to go out and be able to just go for a walk, walking around a city block, great when you want to chat with your neighbors and appreciate their landscapes or appreciate how many landscapes that you put in for them up and down the block. It's fantastic. But if you really want to be able to use the term more forest bathing, to be more mentally aware or to take that break, you need the woods and the water up north to do it. So I went and just bought myself a second business that allows me to live the life that I would like to. So that's where it's brought me. There's my longer story, not so long.
No, thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize this coming into this call that this was the case. So you're a perfect candidate for the freedom driven landscaper. That's amazing. Wow, I've never heard of somebody doing it the way that you've done it. That's really neat. Just a little question. Do you still work with the contractors or do
Yes.
you? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Neat. And
Yeah,
then
all my subcontractors still install my work. I just have a project manager now down there to be able to do all the little running around and the checks that I used to do physically. I'm just
right.
3 hours away. So yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. Wow, that's really neat. Huh. Um, so I'm watching our time here ticking down. One more question for you, since you've mentioned it a couple times. You said that you hadn't had training in marketing, but you've mentioned a couple times having an opinion in marketing. Uh,
Yeah.
w- what is yeah? How do you think about that? What stood out to me was that you said, I think another company wasn't doing their marketing properly, or wasn't presenting themselves the way that you thought they should be. How do you think about that in general?
So how I market my company is that my tagline is outdoor living concept to completion. Not here, have 5 spirea that are on sale this week from our garden center, right? I want to be able to help. I'm not even going to use the word sell because I don't feel like I'm selling. I'm helping match people with an outdoor living space that they can use. That's how I feel about it. So instead of marketing like, hey, you need to buy these plants or we need to sell this type of thing, let's find the right type of space for you to be able to enjoy and enhance your own property, your lifestyle. And we totally found that out over COVID, right? Everybody then realized that their house was too small and they needed to go out into their yard. Well, some of those initial companies really just wanted to market their garden center and push plant material. And we were supposed to be that supplement to be able to get there. And like, well, we can sell so many more plants for our garden center if you design all the plants around their house. Okay, that's great. Or there was another one that's, hey, we're here to sell block and patios and all of this stuff. And so we want you to design those things, but we don't care about the plants because we don't sell any of that. No, you need both to come together. You need to have plants and you need to have spaces. And the spaces usually are going to be some sort of block or paver or gravel or whatever, because it needs to have certain aesthetics or certain purposes, right? That's why we go through all of these different material choices. Another word that's mine too is shovelable. I don't know if anybody else uses it. I probably made it up for myself. So trademark that for me. Thank you very much. But um, you have to have the right spaces that work for the right people with the right products that are in there. So the right plant in the right place for the right purpose, the right product in the right place for the right purpose. And once you bring that together, that's the type of thing that I want to market. Not spirea for sale in the garden center. And I pick on spirea because I'm really proud that I haven't designed with spirea. It's just like overdone in a number of the developments that we go to because the contractors can use that one and not be afraid of it. Like home builders. I built you a house. I put in your 13 shrubs that go with the development. You now have a landscape. No, you don't. Give you a landscape. Let's create that outdoor environment that is your own. Let's take all of the things that you were picking out, curtains and couches and carpets and all of that other stuff inside. Let's apply that same ideal to what's happening outdoors and create a space that you're going to enjoy. True, plants take a little bit more maintenance than your curtains do inside your house. As you have curtains for privacy, let's put up some trees for privacy. They're going to take different maintenance, but let's create that space. So I market myself that way. I'm picky about how and where I market. I'm also super frugal, super frugal. I don't buy ads. I do a little bit in a few of our magazines. That is more of a branding thing for me to plant the seed, all puns intended for this industry, to plant the seed of, hey, yeah, I've heard of Trio. Oh, yeah, I've seen their work somewhere else because they've seen me around. So I do a little bit of that, but I'm also super duper frugal. And I don't like just throwing money at it because I think I need to market. I truly want ROI off of everything that I do. So if somebody comes in and says, oh, we're going to come in and we're going to get you some really great ROI and we're going to give you a whole bunch of these leads to be able to go out and do estimates for. No, thanks. I'm not here to do estimates. I am not here to do estimates. I am here to inspire people about their outdoor spaces. I'm here to design that inspiration. I'm here to make sure that that inspiration can go in and they can enjoy it. I'm not here to sell them any of it. They don't want it, then they don't want it.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Do you find, sorry, one more question. Do you find that do you find that when people, so the outdoor living space concept is not new at all, but I don't know that the average residential buyer is that aware of it. I'm not sure though if you agree or not. I would, I can tell from the data on the marketing side from looking at all the ads and everything and seeing what people are Googling, that usually it's kind of like pavers near me, kind of is the more typical search term. So it was interesting to me when you mentioned inspiring them, because it kind of implies that they aren't necessarily aware of what they're looking for when they come to you.
No, they're not. My best client is not somebody that comes to me and says, and I need a 10 by 10 concrete patio right off my back, 6 foot wide sliding glass door. So that way I can have my dining, my grill, and a lounge chair. That's typically what the builder puts in. 10 by 10 is way too small, especially for a 6 foot wide door. Yeah, you're only going to go in 3 feet of it, but nobody's thought about then how is it really usable? So we educate our clients when they call into us as they explore with us. We're going to talk you through how are you using that space. So that's part of my sales process. I have to admit, I don't keep it a real big secret that that's my sales process. I've talked with a number of other people through the Association of Professional Landscape Designers. I've also talked with our Minnesota Nursery Landscape Association. I've done a few other talks. This is how I'm doing things. And it's really fun when you get to see their faces and they're like, huh, why didn't I do it that way?
Yeah, the
Yep.
realization.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Deanna, I said it right, I hope. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for, I don't know if I did the first time, so I'm sorry. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with me today. It was really interesting to see how your drive to do things the way that you think they should be done has led you to be where you are now. And not only running a business in a way that has some freedom, but to a pretty extreme uh, extent relative to a lot of the people that I speak to. So I think that this is going to be a really inspiring conversation. So thank you so much for coming and speaking to me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you so much.